Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Oxidity channel on education, and today we're going to be looking at whether teachers should choose to use politically correct language in the classroom or not. So that, often we see text which have got specific words that maybe a few of us are uncomfortable using, and so it's, talking about sometimes gender-specific words and expressions. So I'm thinking things like fireman, and rather than say fire brigade, policeman, etc., etc.
Yep.
So we're going to be looking at all that and talking about political correctness. So I have Patricia, who's in Madrid, as always. Hi, Patricia. And here with me today, I've got Carlos.
Yep.
And Coral down on the end there as well. So my name is Rob, so we're going to get started. So the first question is, so there's politically correct language, and then there's extremely political correct language. What do we feel about that? I mean, where do you stand on this whole speaking politically correct, Carlos?
I mean, I would argue that there's no such thing as extremely political correct language. What makes a word politically correct versus extremely politically correct? I don't think that there's a specific way to make a difference. As far as teaching language, I think it's our responsibilities as teachers to teach everything in a safe manner, so that the student doesn't feel insulted, and they can freely express what their opinion is about any topic. And a lot of times it will include politically charged speech. No?
Perfect, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think really, if it's up to the person to understand whether that would be or could be offensive to another person, and to use it appropriately. And I think really, if you're teaching something, for example, and you say, however, in certain situations we wouldn't use this language, and they understand that, then actually you're teaching them for the best way, because they're not going to slip up, they're not going to use something maybe that could offend somebody in a certain situation or a certain word. So I think it's our responsibility as well to make sure they understand that word and its meaning and its context as well, when to use it.
Absolutely. I mean, Patricia, what's your feeling on this? Have you ever been in a situation where something like this has come up?
Yeah, sure. I mean, and here in Spain we have like millions of expressions that can be offensive, but I think that is not what you do, but how you do it, or how you say it, or what intention you have behind what you're saying. And I think I agree with you guys. We have to teach everything. It's like when we teach registers, like formal, informal, neutral. This is the same. It's like, this is what you can say, or this is what you may not say, in depending on the situation and using a context. But yeah, I mean, and this is something really strange, because I thought that Spain was mainly, where this was, happening, because we have gender for every word. But it's, for me, it's such a surprise that in countries like England, it's happening as well. The English-speaking countries are having this gender problem. So I don't know if it's actually a good thing or a bad thing, but definitely it has to be taught.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing that I found that comes up a lot in all my classes is, when the students are trying to talk about a specific person, and they'll often say his or something like that. And I've pointed out that even though maybe you're talking about one person, we tend to use the plural now. No? So you're talking about if we don't want to say whether some male, female. Does that make sense? So you're like they. Even though you're talking about one person. Carlos, you're looking very confused.
Because I am very confused.
When we're talking in general terms,
but I'm very confused because I don't tend to do that. I don't tend to hide the gender of because that's what you're doing.
And not that I'm intentionally hiding the gender, but I mean, if I'm talking in general terms about a person, maybe I would.
Well, but maybe perhaps because maybe in a plural sense, perhaps in Spanish there are male and female gender plural, but in English there isn't. So we say they, and that covers everything. But in Spanish it doesn't. You can differentiate men and women.
Yeah.
Of course.
But I don't. Well, you have to teach it anyways. But as far as teaching is concerned, you have to teach everything. For example, in Spanish, they say a lot "my couple," I think that maybe that's what you're referring to. But they don't make a difference between boyfriend or girlfriend or the gender of their partner or their couple, and that it can be confusing when you come from an English-speaking country where we make a big difference. This is my girlfriend. This is my boyfriend. And that how do you?
But we have started using partner now, haven't we? That's one thing that people will say now. I certainly say partner because I feel a bit old to be saying boyfriend. So I would say partner, and that is a gender neutral word, and it's whether that is accepted now in terms of, well, it's not necessary to know either way whether it's a man or a woman as well.
Right, but then you have the follow-up question. What is his name or her name?
Yes,
You see
can
what
make
I'm
these
saying?
work.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the problem. And well, I mean that's my thought.
Yeah. I mean, even with the term guys. I mean, I use guys all the time. Guys, come on. And really, that's a masculine plural.
Yeah. But now over time, now you can use it for a group of people.
Exactly. Whether there's women and men there or not.
When you're in a class, Patricia, and maybe you're talking about a waiter, would you always, waitress, would you always give the male and female version, or
because you can come across with just one individual that is a woman and work, in hospitality, so it is a waitress. But if you're a group, I always say I'm quite old-fashioned in that sense. Like if it is a group, I always use the generic male, concept or whatever. And then I if there is not like a police officer for the general, meaning of the word. But I do like individual and group concept or group meaning, because I mean you can come across different situations that you need to know all the words for every context. But I think that obviously languages evolve, and this is something that eventually was going to happen. But I think that we are going quite fast, and language is not adapting to the speed of the society, and this is where we are encountering these problems of what do I use, the female version, the male, is anybody going to feel offended if I just I don't know, took it in a generic way? Is very complicated actually.
Yeah, but it's not our job to be the social political police. We need to teach our students everything, and it's up to them to use it. And if they find themselves in a situation where they say the wrong thing, well, somebody else is going to be offended, and they will have a conversation about it. But really, it's not we're not intended to be. The police of language.
I mean, not long ago, I saw in a text that was in the material. It said spokesman. And would you then in that situation say, okay, spokesperson? Would you highlight?
Yes. I would. That we can say spokesman, spokeswoman, or in general spokesperson. Because they're going to hear that more and more. Like you said, Patricia, our society is evolving to sort of take these new terminologies to fit in with our new evolutionary sort of statuses, really. Now there's a huge thing about equality, and obviously people are trying to adapt the language to fit that so that no one takes offense, and they're going to hear it.
I think it's like you say, it's everywhere, and I think we just need to be aware of it. I'll give you another example, because I was in class a few weeks ago with a very, very high level, sort of a P5 student, and we were talking about one of her colleagues. And she was getting a little bit angry about this colleague, and she was having a good rant at me, and she was like, he just need, they, because she didn't specify if it was a male or female, just needs to man up. Now.
Well, that's a legitimate way to say that.
It is, but would you say maybe, because I'm not sure if we're supposed to be saying that nowadays.
Yeah, but you're gonna hear that in movies. You're gonna hear that in
I'm very aware. So
exactly.
I'm very aware.
So they need to understand what the concept of man up is.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that once we teach that, to say, but however, some people might find that offensive.
Yeah, and like I say, it was actually her who said it to me regarding one of her colleagues, and so I did have a thing like, are we supposed to say man up now? Is that kind of a term that we should be using? I mean, I'm going to confess that, this whole political correctness, I think, goes a bit too far sometimes. So, but there's that. What do you kind of? It can be tricky. I find it tricky sometimes.
Yes. It can be tricky.
It can be tricky.
It can be tricky. But what do you teach that? Okay, so don't say man up, say woman up.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that was the thing. Well, yeah.
You know, what's the appropriate word to express the feeling that she's describing?
I suppose we could offer them an alternative for the same phrase in a gender neutral way. Grow a backbone.
I was trying to think of some expressions, some expressions maybe that you can use in
Or by a spine.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
No, there's always another way to say it. I guess it's just a case of making sure. But yeah, and also from our part as well, right? I think we need to be sometimes a little bit careful with. But to be honest, a lot of the times, we kind of use it and we don't know we're using it, So, have there been any? Because I give you the example there of spokesman, etc., etc. Has there ever been any other time that you've seen something in a text or in some of the material that you've thought, oh, I don't know, I'm not too sure about this, Patricia?
Well, I agree when Carlos says that we are not here to teach what is politically correct or not. It's like when you have a topic that talks about religion or talks about, a very political focus theme or whatever. You just have to teach everything. Even if you don't feel like it's going to be a nice word to teach, they have to know it, because they're going to go out there, they're going to find somebody telling them that, and they're not going to understand what, they're listening to. So it's true that we have to be very, very objective in class and say this is what is, what it have to be taught, and I'm going to do it, the best way. And I'm going to feel the people. I'm going to feel the people that this is not offensive. If you don't want to, that word comes offensive. So I think that you have to just be the tool to make the students be aware of all the terms, offensive or not, but not just participate of this politically correct thing.
Yeah. What about in terms of joking? Because again, sometimes you get in situations with students and you're having a laugh and a joke, and maybe the jokes are not always the most politically correct jokes that either you've said or a student has said. How do you feel about that?
I think we have to give our students a lot more credit. They're usually very smart, and they understand jokes, including the jokes that can be sexually explicit. Our students are much more aware of culture, of pop culture, than we think they are. So we obviously have to teach it, and don't be surprised if they smile because they understand what you just said.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, and I think really it's amazing how many of the same expressions, offensive or not, are the same in both languages. And so really, they already know it. They're just learning it in a different language, and really, again, I think if they understand that it can be perceived as offensive to some people, then that's the main thing, it's knowing when to use it, isn't it?
Yeah. Have you ever come across anything that maybe is acceptable to say in Spanish, but maybe we wouldn't say in English, or vice versa, or anything that students have come out with something and you're like, okay, you use that here in Spain, but in the UK or the States or wherever, maybe don't use this term or don't use this expression?
I think the Spanish language is so big that and it's so varied that I usually it's the other way around, where I feel that in the English language we're more the concept of the language can be more repressed than in the Spanish culture, and it'll be more open. So it's usually they just say whatever comes to their mind.
Yeah,
I think.
But so would you say, okay, don't do that in English?
No, I haven't really personally come across somebody who was like, well, they don't use that in English.
Yeah. Have you ever, Cora?
I think it depends on the circumstance. I think it depends on the cultural background. I mean, in old days, they wouldn't even say God, oh God, oh my God. And yet you hear that over series now all the time. And my students say, oh, I hear that all the time. Oh my God, oh my God. And it's like, yeah, they say it in Spanish, for example. But, if you're in a very Catholic a very Catholic or religious place, that could be seen as offensive or blasphemic or whatever.
Yeah.
So it really just depends on the person, your audience, and who's listening to that. You know?
Yeah, I think it comes down to that, right? It's about knowing your students and
Yeah.
knowing maybe what you can say and what you can't say with your students. That kind of leads me on to a little bit, if we're talking about swearing as well, or cursing. So
What level, what degree is classed as swearing now? Isn't
yeah,
it?
it's like there's certain words that maybe we hear and we use all the time in English that a generation ago we definitely, or they definitely wouldn't use that that language. In terms of swearing, and Patricia, is that something that I mean, most students know the swear words. It tends to be the first words you learn in any language anyway, right? When you move to a country, or they're the first words that you want to know, and they're the first words you're going to learn, or even just by watching movies and series.
Yeah.
It's become a lot more acceptable, I feel now.
Yeah.
Whether that's right or wrong is a different matter. But Patricia, in terms of teaching that, would you ever teach that? I mean, it has, and we've had the conversation here in Barcelona, where there has been a swear word in a text, and some people are very comfortable and fine saying that word and teaching it, and other teachers are less so. So where do you stand on swearing and this type of thing?
You have to teach them. It's like they are going to be reading books, and they are not going to be just reading Shakespeare. I mean, they're going to be reading all type of literature, and they're going to find these type of words on what they are reading. So they have to understand what, in what context they are said, and what is the meaning, depending on the text. So they have to use them. And obviously, if they're watching films or whatever in English, they are going to come across a lot of them. So yeah, they have to know it, but you have to do it in a natural way. We all swear. I mean, it's not like we are going to dedicate a class just to swear and to say bad things to each other. So, no. But I mean, they have to control as well that type of vocabulary. Again, they have to know when they have or can use it or not. But I mean, they are adults. They are supposed to, in the most because you're not teaching kids to swear. Nobody, they are already grown up.
Yeah.
So they know when they have to use it or when they can use it. But yeah, definitely, you have to teach everything.
Of
And
course.
I think there's different elements, different times of places. For example, to get pissed. I do teach my students that, because if they go out on a night out, that is what they will. Are you pissed? Oh, well, they need to know it means angry. They need to know it means offended. They need to know it means drunk. So they need to know these words, in different contexts as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find some students are quite happily say some of the swear words, and I wouldn't go to a class on the first day and start using the F word every other word. Of course not, right? It's just common sense. But they're words that they are going to hear, they are going to
And they're quite ambiguous, aren't they? You can use them in very different circumstances to mean different things. So you do need to teach that and the meanings, really.
Yeah.
Right. We have an activity just now about emotions, and pissed off.
Yeah.
It comes up.
Yeah.
So we need to teach that.
Yeah.
And you get to explain the emotion that means,
Exactly.
including the other meanings as well.
Yeah, I mean, but like I said, we have had conversations here in Barcelona, and maybe the same over there in Madrid, that certain teachers aren't comfortable doing that, in which case maybe just don't teach it, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's important, and I have had students who've which I've had a good connection with, let's say, who have asked me, how can we use this, and how can you say that one? And I've taught some expressions maybe that have included swear words because we use them.
Because it's real life, isn't it?
It's real life,
At the
and
end of
that's
the day,
it.
we're not a textbook, and that's the whole point, isn't it? You're not going to get a published textbook telling you what pissed off is and to get pissed. But you really need to know that. It's very important. 99.9% of the population will have used it at some point.
Yeah,
So
of course. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's I think it's just a bit of common sense, and you've got to be careful. Obviously, like you say, with children, I'm not going to go in and start dropping the F-bomb. But it's just about knowing it, and we're all adults, or most of the students are adults.
And like I said, like you keep saying, they usually know all of them already.
Yeah.
And exactly, and they already are using them.
Yeah.
Even maybe not in class, and after class they are saying all the sort of words.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just something we've got to be careful with, and knowing not to offend the other person as well. I've had students as well where I definitely wouldn't swear in class, or I'd be very, very careful with the language I use. And other ones you can be a little bit more relaxed. I think it's just about knowing the person and knowing in the environment as well, right? Not wanting to offend anybody.
Yeah.
It's basically
Exactly. You know, it depends on the situation. You don't want to teach. You're doing a business level class. You know, you're not going to be focusing on swearing words in that at that moment.
exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's something that, like we said, it's every we hear it all around us, right? So it's not going to be it's not you're gonna have to teach it, right? So I think we're gonna kind of wrap up there, unless anyone's got any other comments. Patricia, anything else to mention? No.
I don't know. I think that everything is going too fast now, but maybe in a couple of years, the language will be adapted to whatever we are living. But I think that for the moment here, at least in Spain, it's getting awkward. Like, not to mention, masculine and feminine, and I'll do both.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. It's gonna be like
Yeah, because in Spanish at the moment, right? There's this whole kind of movement about not using the masculine.
Oh, we say both. They say both. One after the
I think
other.
when it's written, do they use the at sign now? Is that that the way that they're kind of making it a bit more
Yeah,
gentle?
I've seen that.
Y nosotros.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
To avoid saying nosotros or nosotras, we say nosotres, which is crazy completely. And we're going to change now everything.
Latin language.
Spanish, just because we don't want to offend.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I guess all the
We'll see
Latin.
where we're heading.
Yeah, I guess they're all going to have to.
Yeah.
The Italians and the French are going to have to. Kind of, that's something that is going to be interesting to see over the coming years. What becomes of this,
Yeah.
So, like I say, we'll wrap up there. So short and sweet today, but thank you guys here. Thank you, Patricia in Madrid, and we'll see you next Friday at 12.